Hi everyone. I feel moved to share today about the link, or the not so obvious link, between anxiety and honesty. It's not so obvious because even when I was in the midst of hardcore panic attacks and generalized anxiety, where I was just overwhelmed with fear that wasn't attached to anything, I was still a pretty honest person. I considered myself an honest person. But the type of honesty that I want to talk about here is a deeper type of honesty. And there's a quote from A Course in Miracles that really helps to clarify this for us. The quote is, "Honesty does not apply only to what you say. The term actually means consistency. There is nothing you say that contradicts what you think or do. No thought opposes any other thought. No act belies your word. No word lacks agreement with another. Such are the truly honest. At no level are they in conflict with themselves. Therefore, it is impossible for them to be in conflict with anyone or anything." So honesty is consistency. Nothing is out of alignment. And this type of honesty is an anxiety squasher. And we'll talk about this type of honesty, this type of consistency, on 3 different levels, 3 progressively deepening levels. So the first level that I want to talk about this type of honesty is this level of form, this level that we call our home on earth. This, as according to A Course in Miracles, it's this dream of separation that we think that we're having. And here on this level of form, speaking from my own experience, I've found that being honest, being consistent across many different areas of my life has really helped to create an inner harmony. There's nothing I'm trying to manipulate for my own purposes. There's nothing I'm trying to do to actively deceive anybody. And there's a harmony. There's just an inner harmony that comes as a result of that. So we can think of a bunch of different examples about honesty on this level of form. One such example is how there's an expression called "name it to tame it." This has to do with getting honest with our emotions. And this expression comes from a lot of the mindfulness work that I teach, where our natural tendency is to want to turn away from anything unpleasant. If it's an unpleasant emotion, if it's an unpleasant situation, we want to just bolt the other way. We don't want to be with it. We certainly don't want to be with a feeling of anxiety or whatever the feeling may be. Name it to tame it is about naming that emotion, getting honest with yourself, with what it is that you're feeling. And it's been shown that as we name our feelings, what gets tamed is a part of the brain called the amygdala. That's kind of like the fiery fear center. That naming actually has been shown to decrease amygdala firing. So that's interesting that just by getting honest, getting clear, and being able to name our emotions can help with taming that sense of reactivity. So that's just one example. Another example is really being honest and responsible for your life's business. So, for instance, paying bills. This might sound a little bit strange, but I actually don't mind paying bills because when I make purchases, they're made with awareness. I live within my means. And so it's my debt. It's my responsibility to pay it off. And there's a feeling of accomplishment, of harmony, whatever the feeling may be. It just feels good to me to take care of my stuff, to take care of my debts. So that's just another example of how honesty and consistency works for me on this level of form. Another example is when I was young, I used to get sick all the time. I seriously was probably in the doctor's office maybe once a month. And when I was much younger, there was a time when I was in an ENT, an ear, nose, and throat doctor's office quite frequently. And going to this doctor was a guaranteed 1 hour wait. You were guaranteed to wait in that waiting room for an hour before you were seen, at least. And at that very young age, I said to myself, if I'm ever in a position of having people wait for me, if I'm ever seeing clients in that sort of office setting, I'm going to commit to myself now that I'm not going to make them wait. If I'm expecting that my clients are going to honor my time, I honor their time. And so I show up on time, I follow through with my commitments. And again, there's just a harmony that comes from that flows from that. And another thing that I'll just say, the final thing about this level of form and honesty is owning our mistakes. When we screw up, we screwed up, and trying to hide it can really only increase the guilt. So owning our mistakes, even if a mistake brings up guilt in us, there's a phenomenal prayer. It's on page 90 in the Foundation for Inner Peace edition. I don't have the other page references in my head, but on the study groups that I facilitate, we always refer to it as the page 90 prayer. It's about owning that you've decided wrongly, and I won't recite the whole thing here. I'll put a note of this prayer in the footer of this video, but there's a sentence that says, I allow Holy Spirit to undo the consequences of my wrong decision. So we don't even have to feel guilty over the mistakes that we make, because as we bring those mistakes to Spirit, Holy Spirit will undo all the consequences. And call Holy Spirit your inner teacher, your inner guide, whatever it is that you're comfortable with. So again, these are just a few examples on this level of form of getting honest and consistent. So let's now step it up. Let's go to another layer, another level. And this is where we're looking at our honest and consistent relationship with our inner teacher. Again, A Course in Miracles calls this the Holy Spirit. You can call it your higher mind, your true self, whatever it is that you're comfortable with. And basically, the way that this area, this level, is an anxiety buster is that through our withholding nothing, through our getting completely honest with our inner teacher, we're able to, without defense, bring whatever it is that's coming up in us to our inner teacher to exchange it for the miracle instead. So that's how miracles work. They're an exchange. It's that we're never just letting anything go. We're getting something back. And that something back is that loving perception in place of a fearful perception. So with our work with Spirit, it's really about holding onto nothing, but owning what it is that's coming up for us. So those tiny fear thoughts. A Course in Miracles refers to it as scraps of fear. In the original edition, it's scraps of meanness, which is equally as relevant. That when we have these negative thoughts come through our mind, it's not about self-correcting and saying, oh, there's a negative thought, I'm going to change it into a positive one. That might give some temporary relief, but it's really not undoing any fear. It's about owning that negative thought that just zipped through the mind and catching it and being honest about it and taking that to Spirit. So withholding nothing from our inner teacher. And by doing so, by not withholding anything from our inner teacher, that is how we really begin to experience miracles and develop our trust. So that's super, super important, is to, on this level of our relationship with our inner teacher, is to be honest about what goes through the mind. The Course says it's not that we're going to stop having negative thoughts, it's that we have none that we would keep. So we're not keeping those negative thoughts for ourselves, we're letting Spirit exchange them for miracles instead. The third and deepest level at which I want to talk about honesty and consistency is, I actually want to share another quote from that same part of the Course that I started with in this talk. That same quote about honesty being consistency, it goes on to say, it's only the wish to deceive that makes for war. No one at one with himself can even conceive of conflict. Conflict is the inevitable result of self-deception, and self-deception is dishonesty. So no one at one with himself can even conceive of conflict. Well, if I'm honest, I can conceive of conflict. I can just turn on the news or look at a headline online, or even just, I could go pick a fight with somebody. I can conceive of conflict very easily. So I must be deceiving myself. And if I'm deceiving myself, I'm being dishonest with myself. And the self I'm talking about is the capital S self. So there's the lowercase s self, which is this illusory identity, this ego self, this false sense of separation. The capital S self is the part of ourself that has remained unchanged despite what we think it is that we're going through on this level. So I must be deceiving myself, my capital S self. I must be dishonest with that self. And this is really, really important to look at, that we're deceiving ourselves in this world by thinking that we're something that we're not. So it's through our work, through our honest and consistent work with our inner teacher, which is what we talked about in the step 2, or the second level that I addressed. It's through our honest and consistent work with our inner teacher that our trust builds, that we experience miracles, that the truth of who we are reveals itself to us. We get glimpses. The glimpses maybe get a little bit more frequent as we allow them in, and our trust builds that we are something way beyond what we can perceive of in this limited form realm. So anxiety is impossible then. What we're doing through working miracles, what we're doing by being fully honest with spirit, is literally undoing the foundation of the ego. We're literally leaving no ground for the ego's fearful voice to stand on. And as we allow those blocks to truth to be undone, again, anxiety has nothing to hold on to. I once had an experience of when I've been deep into this work for a long time, but it was at a point where I was sort of coming out of a really bad episode of anxiety, doing this deep inner work, really withholding nothing, willing to look at everything that was coming up in my own mind with spirit. And I got this image. I felt this actual surge of anxiety sort of rise up in the core of my body. That's usually how the panic attacks would start. And I felt this surge of anxiety rush up, but the image that came forward in my mind was this flailing mass of, chaotic, anxious energy coming up from this blackness. But as it got to the top, as it got to my awareness, there was nothing there for it to hold on to. It was as if it was a smooth tube that the anxiety energy was rising in, and there was nowhere for it to cling, because I had been turning so much over to spirit and experiencing those shifts and those miracles. And literally, that feeling of anxiety just dissipated. It just fell away. So I encourage you to get really honest and really consistent with yourself, with spirit, to allow the blocks to love to be undone as we restore our awareness of what has actually never gone anywhere. And just to leave you with something to do, if you'd like, is to write down your relationship with your honesty with yourself on this level of form, your honesty with spirit, and rank yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being that you are perfectly and completely honest all the time. Give yourself an honest number, and whatever number it is that you give yourself, you can ask yourself, what needs to happen for this number to go up? And you can ask that question of spirit and ask to be shown. If you're not sure, ask to be shown, what is it that I need to look at in order to have greater honesty, to have greater consistency in showing up to do this work. So thanks so much for watching. I hope that was helpful, and I'm thrilled to be with you on this journey to the peace that we've never lost. Thanks.